Most people think wealth is about money. That's the first mistake. And it costs them everything. Think about the people you grew up around. Some of them worked harder than anyone you've ever met. Woke up before the sun, came home after dark, never complained, never stopped. And they died with nothing. Not broke exactly, just nothing. No assets, no freedom, no real options left. Just the choice of which bill to pay late. That's not bad luck. That's a missing map, because wealth is not one thing. It is 5 distinct levels. And the reason most people never build it is not laziness, not intelligence, not even opportunity. It's simpler and more uncomfortable than that. They are playing the game on level 1 while genuinely believing they are already winning. This video will show you all 5 levels. And if you're honest with yourself, truly honest, you will recognize exactly where you are. And more importantly, you'll understand why you're still there. Most men spend their lives protecting a position they never actually held. The first level of wealth is survival income. This is where most people live their entire lives without ever knowing it has a name. Survival income means you earn enough to continue existing. Nothing more. The money comes in. The money goes out. The math zeros every month. Sometimes it goes negative. And then the month resets and the whole process starts again. People at this level are not lazy. Understand that clearly. They are often some of the most disciplined, hardest working people alive. But discipline without direction is just energy burning in place. You can be completely consistent and still go nowhere if the road you're on circles back on itself. The trap of level 1 is not poverty. The trap is the feeling that this is simply how life works, that the cycle is normal, that next month will be different because you're going to be more careful, more disciplined, more focused. But the system doesn't change because your attitude changes. The system only changes when you understand what the system is. Most people at level 1 are not living below their means. They are living exactly at their means. And that zero gap, that perfect balance, nothing left over, is the cage. A cage with no visible bars. You are not losing. You are just not moving. And not moving over time is its own kind of loss. The second level is stability. This is where people start to feel like they've made it. That feeling is dangerous. Stability means there is money left at the end of the month. Not much, but some. You can absorb a bad week without going into crisis. You sleep a little better. You breathe a little easier. And here is where the trap becomes invisible. Because stability feels like safety. And safety, over a long enough period, becomes a sedative. You stop moving because movement feels unnecessary. Why disrupt something that's working? Why take a risk when you've finally found ground that doesn't shake? The comfortable man slows down. He protects what he has. And in doing so, he stops building what he actually needs. History is full of people who reached level 2 in their 30s and were still there in their 60s. Not because they failed, because they stopped. They confused the absence of disaster with the presence of success. Stability is not a destination. It is a platform. A place to prepare your next move, not a place to rest permanently, because security that is not growing is quietly shrinking. Inflation eats it. Unexpected costs crack it. Changing economies tilt the floor beneath it. What feels completely solid at 40 starts to tremble at 55. The comfortable man does not feel himself going backwards. He just notices one day that everyone else seems further ahead. The third level is optionality. This is where the game changes. Not the rules, the game itself. Optionality means you have real choices, not between two versions of the same problem, but structural choices. You can take a different job or leave the job entirely. You can say no to people, opportunities, and obligations that don't serve you. Not out of arrogance, but because you have the resources to be selective. Here is what most people miss about this level. Options are not just financial, they are psychological. The man with options thinks differently. He walks differently. He negotiates differently. He enters every room knowing he can leave. And that silent knowing changes everything. The way he speaks, what he's willing to hold firm on, the pressure he can absorb before breaking. I want to tell you about a pattern that repeats so consistently, it almost feels like a law. Two men, same city, same decade. One earns 3 times what the other earns. The higher earner has a lifestyle that demands every dollar. The apartment, the car, the image, the constant cost of looking the part. The other earns less, but carries 0 debt, low fixed costs, and 3 income streams that don't require his presence. One unexpected offer arrives for both of them. Something that requires walking away from their current income for 6 months to build something larger. The high earner cannot move. He is locked in place by the weight of what he's built around himself. The lower earner takes the offer. 5 years later, you already know which one is ahead. That is optionality. It is not about the income. It is about the freedom the income creates, or fails to create. Most people never reach level 3 because they build income without building options. They earn more and spend more. The number grows. The freedom doesn't. That is the quiet tragedy of the ambitious who never question the structure they're building inside of. Stop. Read that last line again. The fourth level is generational leverage. And this is where most conversations about wealth stop. Because this is where most people become genuinely uncomfortable. Generational leverage means your wealth works without you. Not just passive income, though that matters. But in the deeper sense that the systems you've built, the assets you've acquired, the decisions you've made, they compound across time without your daily presence. This is the level at which wealth starts to behave like a living thing. It grows on its own, protects on its own, creates opportunities on its own. Most people think about money as something you earn and then spend. Level 4 requires you to think about money as something that acts. Capital that moves, assets that appreciate, positions that generate new positions. There is a well-documented pattern in how generational wealth forms and then collapses. The first generation builds through brutal, obsessive effort. They sacrifice and delay and operate differently than everyone around them. The second generation maintains what was built. The third generation, raised entirely inside the comfort that wealth creates, loses it. Not always, but often enough that economists have named the pattern. Think about what that tells you. It tells you that the money alone was never the point. The mental architecture behind the money is what matters. The way of thinking about systems, time, risk, and compounding that turns effort into accumulation rather than effort into consumption. You cannot buy that architecture. You have to build it. And you build it by moving through the earlier levels, not just to survive, but to study, to understand, to reverse engineer the logic of wealth until it stops being a concept and becomes instinct. The fifth level is invisible wealth. Most people don't know this level exists, not because it's hidden, because it does not look like what they've been taught wealth is supposed to look like. Invisible wealth is the accumulation of reputation, access, social capital, and trust at a level where money becomes almost secondary. At this level, a single phone call is worth more than a wire transfer. Being known by the right person opens doors that no amount of money can purchase. Relationships built carefully over decades create protection, opportunity, and leverage that are simply not for sale. There is a type of man, and you have encountered versions of him even if you didn't recognize what you were seeing, who is not the wealthiest person in the room, but who every wealthy person in the room defers to, who gets called when there is a serious problem, who brokers what cannot be brokered, who speaks last, whose silence during a meeting changes the temperature of the discussion. This man is not operating on money. He is operating on level 5. Invisible wealth cannot be built fast. It cannot be performed into existence. It is the slow accumulation of being someone whose word holds weight, whose judgment people trust, whose presence means something without needing to be explained. And this is the level that can't be taken from you in a market collapse, can't be dissolved by a bad quarter, can't be stolen, audited, or inflated away. It lives inside other people's minds, and it compounds exactly the way money does, quietly, invisibly, until the total becomes staggering. Most people never reach it because they are too focused on being seen, on the performance of wealth, the visible signals, the announcement, the display. The loudest version of success is almost never the most powerful version. The man who has genuinely arrived does not need you to know it. Now ask yourself honestly, not which level you're aiming for, not what you tell people you're building toward. Which level are you actually operating at, right now, today, with the decisions you made this week? Most people, when they answer that question with real honesty, discover they are a full level behind where they believed they were. That is not a failure. That is a map. The danger is not being at level 1 or level 2. The danger is misreading where you are, because you will make the decisions of a level 3 person while the situation demands the behavior of someone moving between 1 and 2. And you will wonder why nothing compounds. Accurate self-positioning is more powerful than ambition. The man who knows exactly where he stands can move deliberately. The man who overestimates his position spends all his energy defending a status that does not exist. You now know the 5 levels. You know their logic. You know their traps. But knowing the levels is not the same as understanding what locks people between them. There are specific patterns, specific psychological habits, so deeply embedded they don't feel like habits at all. They feel like personality. They feel like identity. And those patterns act like invisible walls between each level, keeping people circling the same floor for years, sometimes for decades, while convincing themselves they're building upward. That is what the next video is about. Because the map is only useful if you understand what is keeping you standing in the same square. If you have made it this far, it is because some part of you already suspects you are capable of more than your current level shows. Write in the comments, "I am building." Let's see who here is actually ready to move, not just watch.